Well, what's going on, everybody? It's Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA, and I got a special guest with us today, Ted Czech, to come here and talk about what is going on in the mixed martial arts world, what happened this weekend at UFC 199. Everyone called me crazy for picking Bisping, and look what happens. But, of course, I also picked Faber, and I'll take the heat for that. But my boy Bisping pulled through. We got Ted Czech here to talk about all the drama. What's going on, Ted?
Evil Eddie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Long time no see.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, letting me come on the show. Just to let everybody know. I mean, I sent you a message. I DM'd you, and I said, hey, look, if you want, I'll talk about Ariel Helwani. I think I come from an interesting perspective because I've been a journalist for about 20 years now, writing for daily newspapers. I'm a crime reporter. That's my day job. That's my bread and butter, and then MMA is my love, and so not all of us can make money off it. So yeah, I mean, I've been a reporter for 2 decades now, and so I figured I could help maybe help people understand things a little bit better.
I mean, right off the bat, with everything going into it, all I saw before the main event happened was Ariel saying I got escorted out, and I had no idea what was going on. Did you watch it live? First off,
I was watching the pay-per-view, and I remember seeing the Brock Lesnar announcement, and just kind of thinking, wow, that's kind of weird. How they just like kind of boom, that's out of nowhere. They did the Brock Lesnar one, and I forget, did they do the Conor and Diaz one before that or after that? I forget, but it was on that broadcast as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was right before it. Like I said, it was madness, but I do know that they said that. I just don't remember at what point because there was so much going on. But what's your thought on everything going on with Ariel? Did you catch a show today?
I'm totally honest with you. To prepare for this, I watched about a half an hour of it. I figured I'll get the first half hour. I mean, the show is 90 minutes, or just a little over that. But I got the first half hour, and I was taking a few notes. So I think I have a good grasp on what's going on. Reading up on it, and then listening to him. And yeah, I mean, just initially, seeing him and hearing him in tears like that. I mean, I felt terrible for the guy. I felt bad for the guy. I mean. Because he's a reporter, I'm a reporter, so there is a kinship there. As a matter of fact, a guy that used to be there was an editor of mine. He wasn't the first editor I had, but he was an editor that I had long ago. He is now a professor at Syracuse, where Ariel Helwani went to school.
In New York, right?
That's right, Syracuse, New York. Yeah, yep. That's where he got his degree. It's a very well respected university, especially the Newhouse School of Journalism. Where that's the School of Journalism at Syracuse. So it's well respected. But what happened was a guy that Pitbull MMA, a guy who was a subscriber, a friend of mine on YouTube. He sent me a message and he says, "Oh, did you hear Ariel Helwani is banned for life?" And I was like, "What do you mean banned for life? Banned from what? What are you talking about?"
That was my reaction too. I was like, what did he do? Like, oh my, is it that big of a deal? So keep going.
Sure. I mean, here's the thing. I'll go back as briefly as I can. I'll go back to March. You remember in March he was fired from Fox Sports 1.
Yep.
Now, I did a video at the time, and I said, well, that was a situation that should have never happened because he went through journalism school, and what you learn there, one of the many things that you learn is you got a coin, and there's two sides of the coin. There's public relations and there's journalism.
Yeah.
And most of the time, those two things don't necessarily mesh. In other words, a journalist represents the pursuit of the truth, the readers, everybody, the public. A PR person represents whoever is paying them. In other words, if I work for a police department, then pretty much everything that comes out of my mouth is going to be pro-police department.
Yes. Yep.
Or if I work for the UFC, everything that comes out of my mouth is going to be pro-UFC, and it's only released when, my supervisors tell me to release it.
Exactly.
So when he was working for Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 1 has a contract with the UFC. They broadcast, those fight nights, They then produce shows which are based around the UFC, and I'd be willing to bet you they are spoon-fed information. They're given breaking news from the UFC. The UFC, here you go, softball, here you go, we give it to you,
Yep.
right? But Ariel Helwani, he was working for them, and he was working for MMA Fighting as a reporter. So he was breaking stories like what was the one that he did? Well, first he had Roy McDonald on his show talking about free
Yep.
agency.
Talking about free agency. And then
Right.
last time that you were on the podcast, we were talking about how at the UFC 200 Unstoppable presser, that he was like, if Nate wants it, if Connor wants it, we all want it. Why not make it happen? And you said on the podcast that maybe that was kind of like a hit towards Dana for being fired.
Exactly. Yeah, that had already happened at that point. That he had already been fired. Yeah, because he broke the news about Conor McGregor and Nate. Well, of course, the fight fell through for
Yeah.
200. But at the time, he broke it, and I guess for a while there it was going to happen, and that's what got him the axe from Fox Sports 1. And then there he is needling Dana White. I mean, okay. You know what I mean? You play with fire. You're playing with people who are making millions upon millions of dollars, and they take things seriously.
Well, let's catch everyone up on like what happened. What Ariel was sitting there at the UFC 199, and a security guard PR came up to him, and they were like, Dana wants to speak with you backstage. And Ariel was like, no, I don't feel comfortable. He felt like it could have been something bad. So then after a couple of minutes, he another person came up, somebody that's even more higher up, and they were like, you need to come with us now. Ariel says, let me bring somebody with me. They go backstage, and Dana just says to him, you're out.
Right. I guess, and just to back up just a little bit,
Yep.
he broke that night, I guess when he's sitting in the press room, he broke the story of Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 2 at UFC 202.
Yep.
And then a couple hours later, I guess it was, he broke the Brock Lesnar story. So he broke those two stories, and then right before the Bisping Luke Rockhold fight, that's when he was brought into the back, and Dana White told him to get lost. Now the thing is, he's talking. Ariel Helwani, I was listening to him, and he was saying his role is to find the news and to break the news. And as a reporter, yes, that is, and working for MMA Fighting, that is a what I would consider a legitimate news outlet. It's not Fox Sports 1, which basically acts like a PR arm of the UFC. So he's working for MMA Fighting. He's not with Fox Sports 1 anymore. He's breaking stories. Fine. But what you have to understand is the UFC is a private entity. So if they don't want you in their arena, they don't have to have you there. They can kick your ass to the curb. And Ariel Helwani said he understood that about that it's a privilege, but just going back to that press conference where he was kind of needling Dana White on that, and then breaking these stories. You just have to keep in mind that you're walking a fine line there. And
yes.
I guess I feel terrible that it happened, and in some sense I see it as an attack on journalism. However, on the other hand, I don't think that he could have been too surprised by it.
This wasn't the first time that shots were fired by Ariel, whether he meant it or not.
Right. He knows that Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta are some serious dudes. Okay, they're in the business of making money. They're in the business of controlling information. They want to control the information. They want to be able to release it when they want to. And I'm not saying that's right, but they are going to try to do that as much as they can. So if you're walking a fine line when you're breaking all those stories before they want to. Now, as a reporter, that is his job. But he's talking about, first of all, unnamed sources. In reporting, most newspapers, I work for a newspaper where we don't use unnamed sources. So if somebody's talking to me and they're giving me all this info and they say, "Oh, I don't want my name in the paper. I don't want my," then that conversation is pretty much over. Yeah. Or if I think it's still if it's worth a lot, I mean, I'll hold on to it. I won't print it. But generally, I won't print it. So in other words, we don't use unnamed sources. That's unless it's got to be like Watergate big.
Yeah. Yep.
but he's breaking stories using unnamed sources on a regular basis. So that I don't know. I don't know what Syracuse teaches, but generally speaking, by and large in journalism, you don't use unnamed sources, and he does that regularly. The other thing is that he didn't call the UFC and say, "Hey, look, I'm hearing that Brock Lesnar is going to be at UFC 200.
Very good
Can
point.
you confirm or deny that?" He didn't do that. Now he's saying he didn't do that because he didn't think he'd get an answer from them, or they just tell him to no comment or whatever. But you still have to, as a reporter, you still have to give them the opportunity to talk about it because the news is about them.
Yep.
It's about them. Um, so I mean, I don't know who he's getting his information from, and which sources. Maybe I don't know. Did he talk to Paul Heyman? Who knows Brock Lesnar? Did he talk to somebody in the WWE? Did he talk to Vince McMahon or Stephanie or whoever, or did he talk to somebody from Mark Hunt's crew? You know what I mean? Or actually, we didn't know about Mark Hunt until today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't have been Mark Hunt's crew, but you know what I mean. He's got these sources, but the biggest source is the UFC. You at
Definitely.
least, as a reporter, you have a duty to go to them because it's about them and they are the biggest source possible. Yep. So you need to at least give them the opportunity, and then you can write or say whichever. You can at least say, "Look, I went to the UFC and they said no comment." So at least you've done your work.
So do you think Ariel was kind of going behind their back to be like, I got you, you shouldn't have fired me?
I mean, I think there. I saw some of his tweets, like since he had been fired from Fox Sports 1, leading up to this, and there seemed to be a little bit of, a little bit of haha or I'll show you kind of thing. There was a little bit of that in there, but I think he was just trying. I honestly think he was trying to do the best job he could as a reporter. But like I said, the UFC is not. They're a private entity, so if they don't want him, they don't have to have him. They have a long history of doing this with reporters.
It's not the first time they've done it before. Look at Stitch Duran. He opened up his mouth about one thing in the UFC later, and then Dana goes to say, Stitch Duran was never my friend. It's
That's
like,
right.
wow.
They banned SureDog.com from their events for several years.
I was just talking with Jeff Sherwood a couple weeks ago on Cage Side Submissions. He's a really good dude. And it was cool to hear his outlook on the MMA world, watching him, like Ariel, watching this MMA rise like it is. And the UFC's got to be careful. One thing, I love Ariel. I watch the show all the time. But the UFC also has to be careful on, people slandering them because it happens all the time with social media. But for them to think that, in this day and age, news travels really fast. And it couldn't have been more than an hour when Ariel released the information till the UFC did, and you know what? It wouldn't even matter. Today, we don't care who broke the news, whether it was Ariel or UFC. But
no, that's true. We don't. I tend to think I could be wrong on this, but he broke the story, and then I think they figured like, oh crap, he just we got to get this on the paper.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's why it seemed weird that, I mean, like UFC 199 was exciting enough, had enough memorable moments. You didn't need to crowd it with more breaking news like Conor versus Nate and Brock Lesnar. You could say that and break that today, like they wanted to do. They had Brock on Sports Center.
I was watching that live.
Right. So I think that was the idea. Was we're gonna have Brock Monday. Big. Everybody's back to work. Everybody's at their computers, whatever.
Mind-blowing news, right?
Right. I think they only cut into the pay-per-view because of what Helwani did. And then he actually even updated his story, and he said, oh, the UFC just confirmed it. Well, yeah, they just confirmed it because you broke it. You forced their hand. And again, I'm not saying that any of this is wrong. It's just, you just have to keep that in mind. Like, for me as a reporter right now, as a police reporter, I've been shut out from various police departments. We write something in the paper that a police department doesn't necessarily agree with. You say we... come down hard on them for something that maybe they botched, and then they say, oh, they don't really want to talk to you anymore.
It's got to be expected,
Yeah, I'm dealing right now with a particular department, and you know what I mean. I do my job. I continue to do my job to the best of my ability, and and I'm not disparaging Ariel for going public with it, but I'm not going to say who it is or whatever, but I've never spoken about it or anything like that.
Well,
So,
do you think that it's a little cruel that he got a lifetime ban?
I mean, sure, it's a bit harsh, but I mean,
Strike one, strike two, and strike three, right?
well, yeah, maybe I don't know what can we say were the other strikes. I mean, the Fox Sports one firing might have
He's
been
just
one.
doing his job, in my opinion.
Oh no, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. He was doing his job as a reporter. He can be proud of that. Um, but I just I'm not saying it's right what the UFC did, but I understand it,
Oh,
and
me too. Yep.
the
Well,
writing's on the wall. The writing should have been on the wall for him. I find it difficult to believe that he,
I
you
don't
know,
know why he did that. Why? It had to be like
what's that?
it's just kind of like, why did Ariel even do that? Why did he
Why did he break
break
the
this
story?
news before the UFC did?
Well, I mean, he wants to be first. As a reporter, you always want to be first. You want to be right, but paramount is you want to be correct. You want to be accurate, and
But
then number two is you want to be first.
you want to pick and choose that, though, when it comes to news that's such a caliber like UFC 200, don't you think? Right?
Well, I mean, no, I don't think. I mean, like he was saying, and I agree with him here. You don't want to hold on to news.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
don't want to hold on to news. But in the back of his mind, he may have been thinking, you know what, this could get me in hot water with the UFC. And you know what? You take it on the chin. You say, if it gets me in hot water, it gets me in hot water, and I'll deal with it as it comes. But that's the only thing I find kind of hard to believe is that he didn't see this one coming. Although maybe he did when they said, "Hey, we need you to come into the back." He
Yeah.
said, "Well, I'm not going alone."
He
I mean,
could.
like, what did he think was going to happen? He was going to get assaulted. I mean, I think maybe he was hoping that the video guy would roll, and maybe they'd have some of that caught on tape. But I'm sure the UFC saw to that they didn't let the guy start filming.
And their relationship also goes back a while. Ariel was addressing it on his show that one of his first interviews with Dana, who is, the boss man, Uncle Dana, in the middle of his interview, Ariel's microphone, the batteries died, and he was like, I'll be right back, just stay right here. Like, that's a rookie move that shouldn't have happened. He had to run to his car, come back, and Dana was still there. That was their first interview. And, they've had a relationship for a while, up until the Fox fallout. And Ariel was pretty hurt by that. I remember watching the following day. He was like, no one even called me to say, I'm sorry, this and that. And, he must have known at that point that he needs to be a little more careful. And when it comes to what he did at UFC 199, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. But in my opinion, I don't think it deserves a lifetime ban. And we've seen it happen before. And he reported the Bellator, and he said that was only for like 2 months, and they lifted it. And Dana went on record saying if Ariel Helwani wants to go to UFC 200, he's going to have to buy a ticket. So what does it mean, Ted, when they say that he's stripped of his credentials? Can you explain that?
Sure, I've never covered a UFC, but I've covered several Bellator events, and so more than likely they operate somewhat similar. I would imagine. You have a contact. There's somebody who's employed by the company that you deal with, and you have to apply, and you say, this is who I am, this is who I work for, and then they either approve you by email or whatever, and then you show up at they'll tell you, okay, show up at this location at this time of the event, and then they give you, they physically give you like a lanyard or whatever with an ID on it or something.
A press pass.
A press pass, sure. There you go. And then they have an assigned seat for you, and you cover the event. So I mean, it's a literal thing, and it's a like a figurative thing. Like, it's both. It's he has a press credential, but it's also probably something physical as well. You know what I mean? So it's both. He's just not going to be issued any type of clearance to get to press row anymore. He's going to have to be a fan.
Well, don't you think it's a little? I do think it's a little cruel because also I understand that they don't want him talking about Bellator. They don't want him talking about World Tiers of Fighting, and he has all these fighters on where I personally watch every week. And today when he went on, 25,000 people were watching live, and that promotes the fights. That promotes me to buy pay-per-views, get me interested. Like he's done his part, a big fair share of it, doing these amazing interviews. All the fighters feel comfortable with him, and it's hard to see one of MMA's top reporters who, between him and Robin Black, those are like my two favorite big guys. And then there's you, who I follow every week too.
A low guy like me. No,
Well,
that's all right.
seriously though, you know what I mean? Like, I trust what you have to say. I trust what Robin Black has to say and his breakdowns, and I trust Ariel's going to do his job and give me a great interview and get a little dirt if he can get it. If he can get the fighter to say a little bit, then he got it. But the fighter should know. And is this Ariel's fault, or is it whoever let Ariel know about the Brock Lesnar fight? I mean, because even I guessed, I was like, the UFC kind of tooted its own horn when they released Brock Lesnar on the UFC roster, and we all went nuts on Twitter. We're like, what's he doing on there? I was like, oh, is this the UFC 200 mind-blowing news? It must be.
Right. Let's see. So the question was what exactly, Eddie? I'm sorry.
It's that coffee, Ted. It's that bad coffee.
Need more.
Pretty much, he does his fair share of promotion for the UFC.
Oh, there we go.
Does his interviews.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah. Okay. Well, the UFC has shown time and time again that they are bigger. They feel they are bigger, and I'm not agreeing with this or saying it's right, but just it is what it is, as Dana White likes to say. They feel they're bigger than the fighters. They feel they're bigger than any media that covers them. They're bigger than anything. And they don't need anybody. It's the UFC is up here, and then everybody else is down below them. So everybody's replaceable to them. Conor McGregor could leave. They'll make another star. Ariel Helwani's out of there. Who's the next Ariel Helwani? You know what I mean? So everybody's replaceable, and everybody is cattle or sheep to them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That I think is the mentality.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and
especially what they how they've treated some of their fighters in the past, especially, that definitely is a definitely proven point.
Right, everybody's a pawn in this $1 billion chess game.
Yeah.
So that's the mentality that they're coming from. So they don't have a problem shutting him out because somebody else will be right there to come in and take his place. They have other people that they can feed their news to. They don't. It's like a police chief said to me, "Well, we don't need the media."
Well,
but they do. See, that's just it. The UFC does need the media. I mean, what if nobody covered the UFC? What if nobody did? What if nobody gave them an ounce of coverage?
It's true.
They wouldn't make any money, I mean, they'd make some money, word of mouth, but they wouldn't make nearly as much if ESPN, if Sports Illustrated, if the Underground and Vox Media, MMA Fighting, all those guys, if nobody gave them any press, that would seriously cut into their ability to make money.
Well, you're right, because MMA is such a new sport that it's not like when it comes to baseball. Like when I was growing up, my favorite team was the Yankees. Why was my favorite team the Yankees? Because as I was growing up, I was watching with my dad and my grandfather who knew the sport. While they were growing up, it was already established. And for the UFC to get more fans to come view in a newer sport, and such a violent sport especially, you definitely need the media coverage, one. You definitely need the fans, too. And social media is a huge part of it. We saw how fast that news spread as soon as Ariel opened his mouth. And you know what? It's such a newer sport. They can't afford having anybody, making the spoils. But like I said, does it really matter that he even said this? Like, do we really care who said Brock Lesnar's coming out?
Well, I mean, for the UFC cares. The UFC
Well,
wanted to
yeah,
break it. They wanted to break it when they wanted to break it. They didn't want anybody else to break it. Now, they have to realize though that to a certain degree, they've created a monster. Just like they couldn't really control Conor McGregor 100%,
yep.
right? He said, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to come to the United States when you want me to. I'll do a little bit less. All this stuff. They created a monster that they couldn't really control. And the same thing with just the UFC in general.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, look, you're going to create this thing that people are going to cover and people are going to attend, and it's going to be covered by the media. You can't control the media 100% of the time. You can try, but leaks are going to get out there.
And that's pretty much what they're trying to do here. Do you think they're trying to make a point with Ariel?
Oh yeah, they're trying to make an example out of the guy for sure. A lifetime ban, like you said, I think that is pretty
That's
severe.
very,
It's pretty
very.
severe. I mean, I would, like you said, let's let cooler heads prevail. Give it some time, and it may take a while. It may take a year. It might take a couple of years. But at some point, it might even take for the company to be sold. And a new a new president and new ownership to come in, and then maybe Ariel Helwani can get back in there. But I think at some point he will. And until that time, he's going to continue to do his job to the best of his ability, and he's going to continue to break stories and get under their skin. He just is going to have to watch it on pay-per-view or buy a ticket.
It's such a shame though, because when it comes to Ariel, you can see how it's like he's like a little kid in a candy shop at every event. He's so excited to get these interviews. He's like literally like a little kid in a candy shop, and he does such a great job at it. And he's developed this relationship with the fighters and with social media and fans. And it's very hard to hear that he has a lifetime ban. One, I miss him on Fox. I loved when he was doing the interviews. And now we got Megan. We got the other girl. I forgot her name. But you know what? Everyone got a relationship with Ariel through the years watching the sport develop. We all trusted Ariel, and it's just very hard for us to hear that he's got a lifetime ban.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he actually got his start on a little website called MMArated.com. He got to start there. I believe were flying him around the country before, and I'm going back to like 2007, I think. He was being flown around the country to various events when nobody else was. Okay, so he was the first. He was the first guy. I think that's part of it. That's part of. I mean, obviously his love for the sport, obviously his ability to interview fighters and break stories, but also he was, the first guy, a pioneer in a sense. So he was with that company until it went belly up, or until I think it got sold, and then he was with I think AOL Fan House.
Yep.
Which then started MMA Fighting. I think they owned MMA Fighting, and then Vox Media bought MMA Fighting. I think that's how it went. So yeah, he has been around since probably about 2007 or so. I mean, going back to the thing with being PR and being a reporter, like I said, I'm surprised that he didn't know that he was kind of playing both sides of the fence, so to speak.
Yeah.
But in another sense, if somebody offered you the job, hey, would you like to work for Fox Sports 1 and get this, this type of access that you've never been allowed before, and to interview all these fighters and et cetera, you would want to jump at it.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, he kept both jobs, and he said that the Fox Sports 1 job was a part-time job, and his job with MMA Fighting was a full-time job. He also lives in or near New York City, and we know that it's not cheap to do that.
No, whoa, no way.
Right. So I can understand on one side, I can understand him jumping at the chance to work for Fox Sports 1, but he probably shouldn't have done both. It was probably a situation that should never have happened, and unfortunately, I mean, but MMA media guys have to kind of, because the sport is so young, and there's not a whole lot of money to be made in the sport. I mean, I've written for magazines. I've done some other. I did a little bit of live broadcasting. I've done a little bit of PR work, but it's tough to get a career if you want to do it solely in MMA. You've got to really cobble it together. You've got to work for this magazine and then work for that website, and like got to pull like multiple revenue streams together. So I
Yeah.
get what he's doing there, but I just think it was doomed from the start.
So how do we go out with this? Where do we leave our fans? What do you think's going to happen with Ariel Helwani? What's the next moving point? I know you
Well,
said that we should get some cooler heads, wait for it to pass a little bit, but
yeah,
he also has a show every Monday and every Thursday, and he still's got a lot going for him.
right. And he's got Bellator.
And he's got, of course, there's always
So,
Bellator.
well, here's the thing. I wonder if the UFC, because every week on his MMA hour he would have UFC fighters. He would essentially have his pick, based on his relationships, based on his sources. If somebody fought on Saturday, he would have them on Monday. By and large, he would. I wonder if that's going to dry up as well. If the UFC has that control over their fighters, as they can say, you can't go on Ariel Helwani's show.
Is that good? So now Ariel's going to not be promoting the UFC, and I think that's going to take a big blow away from. I watch every Monday, Ted.
Right.
I watch that show every Monday to
And
get.
you'll continue to watch it no matter what. I mean, if he's just sitting there talking, if it's just himself, you'll watch it, because he has a star power in and of himself.
Well,
I mean, you like it when he interviews people, sure.
Well,
right?
like you were just saying, there would be a fight on Saturday, and he would have that fighter there Monday to talk. And I was always waiting at 1:00 to listen. So
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen.
And I don't know. I'm just speculating. So that's a possibility. But he'll still have that show, even if he has to get Bellator guys and World Series of Fighting guys, and he can get Fedor and all these.
Yeah.
Now he has a bit of freedom now.
That's true too.
Maybe he didn't have before.
The cup's half full, right?
Yeah, there you go. And then he'll continue to have that show on Thursday, the MMA beat, and he'll continue to break stories. I'm sure his sources will stick with him, and he'll continue to break stories and get under the UFC's skin. And see, that way, if he continues to do that, he's doing his job as a reporter. But you know what I'm going to say next? He's going to continue to be banned.
Very true. Definitely very true.
So we're probably more than likely, back to what I said earlier, we're going to have to wait until they sell the company and you get a new sheriff in town, and he says, you know what, Ariel, I respect what you do. I'm going to give you a shot. Come on back in. You can go to our events.
Well,
that might be what happens.
This is great news if you're Scott Coker.
There you go.
You know what? The Bellator cards are, they're getting fighters. We saw Benson Henderson go over there, and for Benson Henderson to get whooped like he did to a Bellator fighter, especially, made a lot of people open their eyes. Like, wow, they do got some talent over there.
Right.
I was there live to watch that, and everyone was silent after the first round. We all showed
the real deal.
That was big for Bellator. And now with Ariel, if he's not going to be interviewing the UFC fighters, I wouldn't be surprised if people start viewing into Bellator. But the thing with Bellator, we already know they got to stop with the cards that they're making. And, they have potential. The potential is totally there. The sport is still very young. And if you get somebody like Ariel reporting who already has all these fans who back him, that's some pretty big news.
He could go all in on Bellator and say, you know what, I'm gonna try to help them do the best that they can. Maybe they won't ever eclipse the UFC, but they could really be a strong number two. I mean, in my mind, they're kind of a distant number two, just because of the infrequency of the cards and things like that. I mean, they have great ratings on TV for a lot of their fights, especially when they do the freak fights.
Yeah.
They get some really great ratings.
I hate when they do the fights the same night as the UFC has the fight. It's like, what? Like the King Mo fight. It was like, why did it have to be the same night? I'm like,
I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, going forward. I mean, maybe they didn't have a choice. There's only so many nights that you can do stuff, so sometimes you have to go head to head. But I wouldn't personally. But then again, I'm not Scott Coker.
Well, thank you so much, Ted, for coming on. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
Sure. I've got my own little YouTube channel, Ted Czech, TEDCZECH, like Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic. So I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. So I try to do videos, mainly commentary videos. I don't do a lot of interviews. So just commentary, and I appreciate everybody jumping on board and hashing it out with me. I welcome all the comments, even the hate. I love it.
You
So
gotta expect it.
it makes the world go around, right, Eddie? So
Yeah.
yeah, you can find me everywhere. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, usually we don't do this. This is the first time I've done an interview like this, so this is some groundbreaking stuff for Pure Evil MMA. And
Good.
Ted,
I'm glad to be a part of it.
I love that you came back. I love that you got a hold of me. I really hope that we can do this again.
Yeah.
Start making a habit out of it because I love your videos, one, and anyone watching right now, definitely go check out Ted's YouTube page. You can find him on Twitter as well. And he keeps everyone up to date on all MMA news. Thank you so much, Ted. I really hope to hear from you soon, bud.
Thanks, Eddie, and you're doing a great job, man. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing great.
All right. Thanks, Ted. I'll talk to you in a little bit, man.
Okay, I'll see you.
Have a good one. So there was Ted Check, guys. Thank you so much for watching Pure Evil MMA. I have, I don't know how to feel about this. Um, Unfortunately, Ariel is no longer going to be doing the interviews at UFC. He got fired from Fox, and now with all this drama going on, he got called backstage. And if you guys tuned in a little later, I know this was a live stream. What you guys just missed was my interview with Ted Check. I'm Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA, and we were discussing Ariel Helwani and what happened after UFC 199 or during UFC 199 when Ariel told everybody prematurely that Brock Lesnar was going to be at UFC 200, Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz too, and he had to get escorted backstage. He saw Dana White, and Dana said, "You're done, you're out," and stripped him of all of his credentials. Go check out the MMA Hour. You can watch Ariel's show, which aired this afternoon, and he explains in depth about that. That's what we were talking about tonight. Make sure to support Ariel with hashtag #FreeAriel. I'm behind him. I don't like seeing this at all. It goes both ways. However, I don't think the UFC doing this is a good thing for them. Ariel does so many promotions with the fighters. Like I was just saying, there was a fight on Saturday. You always know damn well that he will be there on Monday to interview him, to get the backstory and everything that's going on. Always bringing in fighters to interview about their upcoming fights. And that's what helps me get tuned in for these fights. That's what gets me at the edge of my seat. There's not many good MMA shows out there. And Ariel has made a family of people that just trust him between the fans and the fighters. And that's a huge thing. And he does it with so much love in his heart. So I really wish for everybody to get behind Ariel. And as a young MMA correspondent, I would hate for that to happen to me. It's hard to say what I would do in that position. However, if that did happen to me, I would take it hard. And Ariel was at the verge of breaking down on the show about 4 times. At one point, he actually did start crying. And it was definitely very hard to watch. We watch him every Monday. Loyal fan base. You guys are watching Pure Evil MMA. I'm Evil Eddie. Thank you for tuning in. Check out our podcast on iTunes and check out our website, ProWrestlingAuthority.com. Let me pull you into my world really quick. ProWrestlingAuthority.com. We have our podcast. We have my articles. I update everyone this week in UFC. Just type in ProWrestlingAuthority.com. You'll find the articles and you'll find the podcast. I hope that you guys had a fun time. I hope that we can bring Ted Check back. He's always filling us in on the latest MMA news, and it just doesn't get any better than that. Make sure you guys tune back in, subscribe on iTunes. Let's get up there, baby. Follow me on Twitter at evil_echo. We're always talking about the fights, always keeping everybody updated on news, and always talking with fighters. We just had Monica Franco on last week. Go check it out, guys. You're listening to Pure Evil MMA, and I'm Evil Eddie from Pro Wrestling Authority. I'm out.